Someone said that if you want to hide anything from an African, put it in paper. Put it in paper. Africans don't read. Common is an eye that looks. Ray is an eye that sees. And man is responsible.
Yeah.
The word responsibility is a two-in-one word. It simply means respond with an ability. Whether you know it or you don't, there's someone who's looking at you, who's following your footsteps.
Yeah.
Hence, you need to lead by example. But the mindset you find in Alexander and the mindset that is in Santi is too different. Which speaks of environment, empower to influence or infiltrate one's growing up or one's mindset.
Man.
Every man needs to have a vision. I will just go to a fancy restaurant just to order a Coke or water. For me to familiarize myself with such environments. Discipline doesn't say I do because I feel like doing. Discipline says I do because I have to do it. When I got introduced to books, I got introduced to the world that I have never been into before.
Man.
If there's anything that you can take away from this podcast, is that you are qualified.
Dr. Mtha, thank you for joining me today for this chat. I'm really, really grateful to have you with me, and I'm excited for the conversation we're going to have today. But before we jump straight in, I'm just going to give you the opportunity just to introduce yourself to those who are tuning in. Who's Dr. Mtha?
It's just a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited. Thank you once again for extending this invitation. We don't take it for granted. Well, Dr. Mthandazo Sibanda is a business consultant, a leadership expert, a keynote speaker. I am also an author and by God's grace an ordained pastor. Just a boy who grew up in Ekasi with the big beliefs that one day he's going to make it. And I always say that one of my mottos is that it's just a boy making big city moves. So, yeah, man, so in a nutshell, just a guy that is passionate about bringing transformation and changing the world to be a better place.
Yeah. No, man, that's awesome. And like today, I just want to chat around the mindset of an African man or an African boy. And I think similarly for both of us in this case is that like we come from a township. Well, I like to consider mine a township. I think maybe my definition of a township has kind of been warped and put into a box where a township is like Ekasi, where it's African people, but I come from a colored neighborhood. And when I look at that colored neighborhood, Newlands East in Durban, it has everything that in my mind would qualify it as Ekasi, because in that space, most people barely finish school. If they do, they just end by matric. They don't go further than that. There's crime, there's gangsterism, there's drugs in that community. You name it, it's been, I grew up in that kind of space. So in my mind, it qualifies as a Gasi, maybe not the typical Gasi that we use to when we speak of a Gasi. But I just want to chat around in mindset a bit, like how we find it with our generation, with typically black people in particular, because I'm seeing that the mindset affects a lot, and it does do a lot in terms of shaping people. So on your side, what has your mindset been? Seeing again coming from a Gasi, and here you are, Dr. Mtha. What role has the mindset played for you?
Yo, man, it's been quite a journey, and usually when I tell my story, it wouldn't be enough to tell it without saying the background, literally where I come from. Like I always say that I was born, man, of a single mother.
Yeah.
In a place called Ngulumana, which is a Gasi. And I usually go back to think about what life was for my mother. Just a teenage girl, you're pregnant for the first time, and there's no man to tell. The man is not taking responsibility for that. And you are also a girl just from Ekas, and I guess I always think that it was a difficult experience and the chapter of your life.
Yeah.
But she had many options. One of the options was maybe to abort, the other option maybe to kill yourself with the baby, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
you know. But she kept the baby, and I happened to be that baby for a reason,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm always reflected to that story when I think about the purpose of my life.
Yeah.
Definitely got a reason for me to be here today. So during that process when my mom was pregnant and can you imagine you're pregnant for the first time? So she says to me, she didn't even have a name for me. That's how hectic it was. You know, for me that speaks about maybe she had options of, hey, maybe I don't have to give birth to this baby, you know. So then she says that I only went through the process and I said, let me give it one day at a time and see how it unfolds. And she says that it was up until I was born, and because maybe of the phases that she went through, depression and whatsoever, I had also complications, because they said since from birth I had complications and I was sick unto death, up until the doctor said they didn't think that I was going to make it even 2 years or 1 year old, you know. And one of the significant things that happened during that time, my mom said they didn't take me to any way, because even the medical doctors, they said you just go home, wait for him to die. So they didn't take me to Sangoma, they didn't take me to anything. My mom said the only way or the only thing that I knew was God. Said they took me to church, you know, and they said because of prayer I was healed. Hence where my name comes from, Mthandazo, prayer. My name comes from that. So when that story was told to me, you know, I grew up with this thing to say, definitely my life is a purpose. I could have died before birth. I could have even died after birth, because they said I was so sick. You know, so that story, it kind of like, whenever I think or reflect back, I'm taken to that story that my life had a purpose and it had a plan. And beside that, like, I started hearing God from a very young age. Very young age. And I remember the voice was vivid. It will always speak to me, and it will always speak to me in instances where, you know, like a boy growing up, you always want to steal sugar, you always want to do this. Whilst I tried to do that as a young man, there's always a voice that I will always hear constantly, and that voice will always say, you are born for a purpose. You're not supposed to live your life like this. You're not supposed to do these things. And I remember, because my mom introduced me to church, that particular time I read scriptures about how Jesus grew up. You know, and one of the things I would always fight and contend with this voice. I would always say, no, but Jesus started at 12. So I'll stop these things when I'm at 12 years. You know? So for me, it was the understanding that my life had a purpose. But growing up knowing that your life has a purpose, obviously the Bible says one time a farmer went to plant. And when the farmer planted, the Bible says it was at night time. The enemy also came and planted the seeds. So my life was planted in Christ, but also the enemy wanted to plant his seed in my life. So growing up in Ecas, like you said, we know that what the environment, because environments are so important. They can map up your framework. And to give you an analogy of what I'm saying, you know, Alexander and Santin are divided by a street.
Hey, bruv.
Just a street. But literally, the mindset you find in Alexander and the mindset that is in Santin is too different. Which speaks of environment have power to influence or infiltrate one's growing up or one's mindset. You know, so the environment itself, it just changes the dynamic. So growing up in Ekasi, the environment says you're not going to make it. The environment says you're just going to be one of the boys that are in the streets. Probably you're going to end up in jail, you're going to end up selling drugs or into criminality. You know, but for me, what kept me was the purpose. That story, how I was born, you know, but I lost that along the way. One of the things that I overly emphasize, I always talk about this, one of the greatest foundations that my mom did for me. My mom wasn't educated, by the way. because she got pregnant when she was young, and also their parents were challenged. You know, it's the township story.
Yeah.
They were challenged with the finances to take her to school, and she was the firstborn girl. So back in the days, in their time, it was said that boys were the ones that were taken to school. Girls were not taken to school. So they will take them as far as they can, but when push comes to shove, it was always the boys that will go to school, and they have to remain home and do the duties that women are meant to do, especially in our black community, in our culture, like that. But one of the things about my mom, I don't know where she got this perception or this concept of reading. From a very young age, one of the things that my mom introduced me to, he herself not being educated like that, she introduced me to books. And the books that I would never forget, the first book that she bought me, it was on my birthday, it was The Princess and the Peer. So I've always had this mind that works in pictures. I love good pictures. You know, I love good pictures. So one of the things that I loved about those books, I didn't love the reading. I just loved the pictures. The pictures were just so good, you know. But it built a world. Remember, I'm coming from Ekasi, you have a high rate of divorce. We don't have kind of role models. We don't have those good pictures. So it was from the books that I began to build those pictures. You know, but like I said, that the enemy will always also plant a seed. So the enemy planted a seed of peer pressure. So peer pressure was in this way. Like I said, in a class where I grew up, it was a very harsh class. So one of the things, as you can see, I was dark. So as a boy growing up in a class, you know, man, the situation, you know how
getting teased.
They will give you names, they will give what. From that, I developed a hard, kind of a hard version, a defense mechanism, where I just needed to be a fighter from birth. Remember, you're coming from a class, you don't have a dad. Some boys have this thing of my dad is coming to collect me, my dad is bringing me this. I don't have that. Not only that, I also have this skin complexion, happening where people are trying to give names and whatsoever. So I became, I've always been a psychological person. You know how psychology works. If you know that people are going to give you names, I will always, we call this a reverse psychology. I will begin to give you the name before you even give me a name. And I've always used this. I just didn't know that it was reverse psychology. So I developed that. I also developed this thing that I also became, violent. As a way of protecting myself. I became so violent as a way of protecting myself. Like I said, that also the enemy was planting a seed, because the enemy has a way of knowing where you're going. He always has a way of knowing your future.
I always say that your worst enemy is an enemy who knows you better than you know yourself. And the devil happens to be that person, because he understands that God has planted something in you, and he already understands that better than you understand it. And now he's going to plant the right devices to keep you in a cycle, so that you don't actually now break out into whatever God has called you to. So that's very true.
Yo, man. So that's very true. But one of the significant things that I will never forget is that from the cast where I come from, if you ask anyone who's from Ulumane, will tell you we used to have a group by the name Star Force. So that was our role model. That was our inspiration. We just wanted to be in a group where we are violent, we are beating people, and all these other things. And so as I grew up in that environment, I became so violent to the extent that I would gather groups to fight. So between Kulumane, there was this road that separates this next neighborhood, which was called Chabalala. So there was always a rival between Kulumane and Chabalala. And I remember one of the last biggest fight that we had, it was Kulumane versus Chabalala. And that fight was started by me. So how I started the fight was so interesting, man. So I'm just walking from my house. So these 5 boys, they're looking for this guy called Tando. You know, when you're boys, there's always girls. So the guys crossing the streets to go shell at the other side. The guys are taking girls from our wood. A man was born to defend his territory.
Literally, that's how you see it.
So the guys, obviously, they were defending their territory. So they claimed that one of the guys had taken the girls there. So they came to our wood. So
to come to think about it, I heard them conversating. I should have just could have avoided or
Easily.
ignored the conversation.
Yeah.
But because you exactly hardcore cars, I'm from a cars, you can't come in our cars.
Yeah.
You're looking for my boy and I'm just gonna keep quiet about it.
Yeah.
So when I heard this guy speaking, I started, we had E-flat, shy flat.
Sure, yeah.
We have got your own flat.
Yeah.
So I remember shy flat to signal the guy that, hey, this is what's happening. There are people in our territory and they want to invade our territory.
Yeah.
I remember the guys came out and I told them, this is how they went. We looked for those guys. We never even negotiated. The way we beat those boys up.
Yeah.
Yo, man, like we beat those boys up. They ran. When they ran, they went also to recruit.
Gather
Their own
the troops.
So just the moment you thought I have won, when we were walking, forgotten that we even fought earlier on.
Yeah.
The whole Chawala came for us. And that was a hectic fight because in the process, because you had to run to people's houses, people's properties were broken down, windows were broken down, and a lot of things happened. And I remember when in one of the houses, this girl from my hood says to me, do you realize that there is a sense of leadership in your life? That time I don't know anything about leadership. And she said to me, look at how people follow you. If you didn't fight, these people are not going to fight. And it was in that instant I had to think about my life at that particular time. Because I've endangered some people. Some people could have been hurt, some people would have been stabbed, guns and all these things, So it was at that particular instant. And then God started to work on me. One of the things that we cannot run away from, by nature, a man is an animal. By nature. He's a creature.
Yeah.
He's meant to do bad things.
Sure.
But what turns a man, what keeps him in purpose, is the God factor. If you introduce a God to a man, there are people that are going to meet God through people, there are people that are going to encounter God through circumstances.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my God moment.
Yeah.
Because at that particular time, she never ministered Christ to me, she never told me about Christ. Remember, I was always going to church.
Yeah.
One of the things that my mother has never negotiated was going to church.
Yeah.
Mothers,
they
they always come up with a plan.
Yeah.
So back in the days, I was a gamer, so I used to love, we used to have Sega.
Yes.
So my mom knew that I love those things with passion. So she would only say that, you don't come to church, you don't play nonsense in my TV.
Sure.
Or you don't eat.
Yeah.
Or she will lock the door.
Yeah.
She says, okay, it's fine, don't go to
but
church.
You're not staying in the
house.
house.
You're not going to stay in the house, you're going to wait outside.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about working. So I became a church goer. I have always known Christ. The whole of my life I've always been in church.
Yeah.
But I never had a relationship with God.
Yeah.
So I would go to church for the sake of my mom.
Yeah.
But that moment was a God moment for me because I decided, I really sat down and said, yo man, I need to do something. Then as I was browsing the channels, I was acquainted to Miles Monroe.
Yes.
So usually when you acquaint something like that through someone referring you to something, for me no one referred. I was just going
on
through TV channels.
Yeah.
I met Miles Monroe.
Yeah.
And I've known about purpose, but I didn't know the depth of purpose up until if you need to learn about purpose, you follow that man. He speaks on purpose. That man defines purpose.
That is true.
He speaks on purpose.
Yeah.
I started to listen to Miles Monroe. My life changed, man, because he introduced me to me.
Yeah.
And then I discovered that all this time, God has been orchestrating, God has been making a way for me to understand that I'm not just born to be a boy that comes from Gulumani, because that's the thing that we want. We just limit ourselves to where we come from.
Yeah.
And God said, there's something significant, there's something big about you.
Yeah.
And which is one of the things that I feel like for men, this is where mind shift begins.
Yeah.
When you discover your purpose. Why are you here in the first place?
Yeah.
Your purpose is your why.
Yes.
And men should constantly ask themselves,
why?
Why am I here? Because as you grow up, there's a void. You lose yourself within the spaces because of peer pressure, because of life, because of the environment itself where we come from. You lose yourself.
Yeah.
But you come back to the why. Why am I born?
Yeah.
Why am I here in the first place?
That's powerful.
Within that process, I discovered that there was something great about me. One of the first things when you discover your purpose, you're gonna change your perspective. The way I thought was different. So I couldn't think like a typical boy that comes from Acres, which then shifted me from that guy who was staying in the bridge. Because you know when you're coming from Acres, it's a norm to sit in the bridges. It makes you cool. It makes you cool. Even if a girl is going for a guy, they're not going for a guy who's a maid or whatever. They're going to go for the guy that is at the bridge.
The cool guy.
Because that's the concept of Acres.
Yeah.
The guy who sits at the bridge, that's the cool guy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that is going to make a man become a man, going back to what I call redefinition. What is the definition of a great man? Because from Acres we don't have a role model. We help us define what's a great man.
Yeah.
So from that, I got to learn about purpose. But further than that, I started attending church, and God even changed the people that I used to play with.
Yeah.
And introduced me to a guy, his name was Victor. You know, that guy was passionate about young people, was passionate about information. That guy was a leader. With the net, you know, this guy that think that they're different.
Yeah.
You know, but one thing that I liked about him, in him thinking that he was different, he never acted different. He would still come and sit with us, you know, talk to us or whatever. You know, one of the things that he introduced to us, and that thing messed us up, was the book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell.
Yeah.
Yo, bro, like, I tell you, when I read that book, it really changed the scope of my thinking.
Yeah.
It changed my passions. You know, it really introduced me to the guy that I am today. It was from that book. Which takes me to my next point. We cannot overemphasize the reading, the books. Books are so important. So if you tell me what changed me, what made me a better person, from coming from that same environment, it was the element of reading. When I got introduced to books, I got introduced to the world that I had never been into before. Because when you live in Acres, the world is limited to what you see.
It's the gas.
But when you become a reader, a book introduces you to a world that you've never been into. And I always say, one thing that is exciting about books, it introduces you to experiences that maybe took 4 years for people to go through and learn. But for you, it's just a book away. What some people experienced in 4 years, they compress that into a book. Which becomes an advantage to you.
Sure.
Daniel chapter 9 verse number 2 says, Daniel actually says, remember Daniel is this guy whose people said was different from his peers. He was a wise man. Why was he wise? He says his secret in Daniel chapter 9 verse number 2. He says, I, Daniel. In other words, he's introducing us to a guy that is great. He says, I, Daniel, a guy that knows his value, a guy that understands himself. He says, I, Daniel. This guy that you guys inspired to be, this guy that you know, what's the secret to me? I understood by books.
By books.
He says, I understood by books. And Paul introduces this young man, Timothy, and says, study to show yourself an approved workman. Study to show yourself. So we can never overly emphasize the aspect of reading. Books are so important, and like I was sharing, books are so important to the extent that someone said that if you want to hide anything from an African, put it in paper. Put it in paper. Africans don't read.
Hey, bro. This African right here confirms that statement. Because, bro, I do not like reading. Yo, man. I was not a reader. At some point, I would even identify myself as an analytical person. And I gravitated towards maths, accounting, because I'm like, give me numbers, give me analytical stuff, small things. Don't give me notes. Don't give me books. Don't tell me you have to read this Shakespeare play, you need to read Othello, Merchant of Venice. Oh, I did not like it. Prescribed readings and all that. I really hated it. I didn't like it. To the point where 2020, just before lockdown, I even told myself, because now I think at that stage, I firstly knew, okay, I'm called to leadership, I'm called to ministry. And I'm like, okay, great leaders. Now I'm trying to figure out if I'm called to be a leader, what do great leaders do? What do leaders do? And I found out that
Great leaders are readers.
they're readers. Great leaders are readers. I was like, really? Could you not pick something else? Like, great leaders are prayers. I can pray.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, great leaders are readers. I have to read. And I don't like reading. I don't have any urge to read. And I remember the room I was staying in 2020, this wall, literally, there was a whole wall that was a bookshelf. Like, it was built in. It was like a bookshelf, that wall. And there were books, man. There was everything. There's so many books, fiction, non-fiction, whatever. There were some dictionaries, encyclopedias, maps, all these kind of things. I remember there was even Twilights, the whole collection of the Twilight books.
Wow.
And I was just like, okay, I asked myself, I'm like, what is one thing I want to come out of lockdown with, you know? Because we were entering, the initial lockdown, the 21 days, we were entering that season, and I was like, okay, what is something maybe I want to look back and say, okay, I developed this in lockdown. I was like, okay, reading. Let's try reading. There's books, there's something, let's try. And I remember the first book I picked up. It was a little blue book by Louis Giglio. Can't remember the title, but it had to do with the presence of God. It was something along those lines, like sitting in the prison. I even remember the cover. It had a chair, like the front cover was like this chair, because it was about, being in the presence of God. Yeah. It was a little small blue book, and it was less than 100 pages, probably like 92 pages or something. So I picked that one up. I was like, yeah, I can read this. Small book, I can do this. Let's start here, start small. And I read it, I finished it in like a couple of days or a week. Don't judge me. I know some people probably can finish that in an hour. Finish it in a couple of days.
They say you need to read 4 books in a month.
You see, I struggle to finish one in a month. I think I struggle with the book that's like maybe, I think the most I've gone through now is like maybe just under 300 pages, maybe 290 something, And I think the last book I read, I'd like to say I would have read it in a month, but the thing is there were gaps. I read half the book, it was like, 12 chapters, if I'm not mistaken. I read 6 chapters within a space of a week. And I skipped another week and a half, 2 weeks, just skipped it, procrastinated, didn't read, picked it up again later on, finished the other half in it. So technically speaking, I did finish the book in 2 weeks, but there were gaps. But, I struggled. There's been times where I'd finish a book, it took me 4 to 6 months. And that's because I won't read for 2 weeks, I'll read again, and I won't read for a month, because it hasn't become that very, like a innate thing that I do daily, that I practice very consistently. But I can say at least now that I have that urge, I want to read books, to the point where now even I want to invest in books, because another thing I realized was you'll only gain knowledge that you actually sacrifice for. Meaning, it's one thing to be given a book. It's one thing to have material freely available. But when you actually now inconvenience yourself to the point of spending, when you spend for knowledge, it's another level, So now, at least I'm at that stage now, I can say where I even invest. I want to buy books. I'm looking at books. I have a list of books that I'm like, I want to buy this book, I want to read this book. It's religious books, it's business books, psychology books, whatever, history books. Let me get something that's going to give me knowledge, So I understand that where if you want to hide information, guys, this is so true. I was saying the earlier example, Kevin Hart, the American comedian, when he was still trying to build and trying to break into the industry, the comedy world. And I think he was saying that he was moving out into his own apartment, and his mom bought him a Bible, as a gift. And he was kind of like, Bible. He was like, this is a weird gift, but he was, okay, thanks, mom. Puts it away, does his thing, he's hustling, and he's coming into tough times financially, can't make rent. So he speaks to his mom like, hey mom, I need some money for rent, whatever. And his mom was like, hey, have you read that Bible I got you? This woman is talking about a Bible, I need money for rent. Like, I need money for rent. Don't tell me about a Bible, I need money for rent. And the mom was like, well, come talk to me after you've read the Bible. And he's upset, man. He's mad. He's trying to hustle. He's trying to figure it out. He goes, tries to figure it out, doesn't get it along. And then he says, I think one of his low points, very low points, and he's like, okay, picks up this Bible. Opens this Bible, an envelope falls out. And I think he says like 3 months' rent is in this. And it's like, imagine that. Literally, what you need, it's there. The provision, you already have it.
It was always there.
And it's that thing of like, all he had to do was open. He's been hustling. The very thing he needs was in the Bible. He had put it in there. So that was so, I feel like it's such a practical one of what you're saying, that if you want to hide something from a black man. Put it in a book. Because we're lazy.
Literally, we don't read, man. And this is the culture that is not there in our community.
Yeah.
It's something that we need to introduce ourselves to.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
Just to wake up and you are a reader. But now, this is what John C. Maxwell says. He says successful people are people who do daily what ordinary people do occasionally.
Hey, bro, and that's I'm currently in that space. Eh, I'm trying to fight the occasional because I have these things. I'm trying to put. I'm occasionally working out. I'm occasionally reading my. Hey,
you're not gonna build something successful if you don't put yourself to it.
Yeah.
You're not just gonna wake up because you want to be a reader. You are a reader.
Ish.
You need to put yourself into it. One of the things that I was young, I learned was to play the bass guitar.
Yeah.
So I played a bit of instruments.
Yeah.
So one of the things when we grew up, so the church where I attended, they bought instruments because I come from a very traditional church. We never had instruments.
Yeah.
So by God's grace, when we came as youth, we started to challenge the olds.
Okay.
We need to change systems here. We young people, the times are changing, it's modern, and we actually infiltrated to the leadership until they felt our message. They saw a need to buy instruments. Now the instruments are there. There's no one to play the instruments. So we got then church to pay for us to go train. To play instruments. So remember, churches never had instruments. So there's an expectation to have instruments and to play. So they took us to school of music. So I'm thinking when I get there, the first thing that they're going to teach me how to play songs. Because I have an expectation back at my church to play a song. When I go to the school, this guy introduces us to what is called a scale. I'm like, what nonsense is this? We're here to learn a song.
Let me play.
So I thought maybe we're just going to do this thing maybe for 2 days, then they introduce us to the song. I get there. This is the scale. Da, 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 da. Come back tomorrow. This is the scale. Da, da, da. I'm like, when are you going to teach us how to play a song? Because where I'm going, they need me to play a song. And this is where we are as people that want to be successful. It's not like you're going to wake up as the leader. You need to put yourself into something. So it takes time. Know what you want. Be committed to that thing. Discipline. Discipline doesn't say, I do because I feel like doing. Discipline says, I do because I have to do it.
Come on.
So you don't read the books because you feel like reading. You read the book because you have to read the book. That's how you develop a muscle, a discipline in a certain area. I always speak about Asian board. In my book, I write about Asian board. So they say that race was ran in 9 seconds. That's what everyone else is saying. And for me, that's a lie. That race was never ran in 9 seconds. You ask me why? Do you know why I say that? That guy took 4 years to practice to run 9 seconds.
This is true.
Practice is part of the process of winning. You ask me, how long then was that race ran? 4 years, 9 seconds. That race was ran 4 years, 9 seconds. That's why we call it a discipline. A discipline is something you put yourself to. So if you want to be successful in your endeavors as a man, pick a book.
Read a book.
Read a book. And one of the things that you need to understand, especially in our culture, we have never had precision in terms of marriages or even role models. We have a lot of divorce and whatsoever thing that is happening. That should not be your reason of failing. Financial literacy. We don't have black people that are disciplined like that. Where are we going to learn it from? From a book. I said earlier on, one of the things that I think we need to do for the continent of Africa is redefinition of things. I posted something on Facebook and people started to attack me up until I explained it. I said catching a flight is not a sign of success. It's a mode of transport. We need to go back to redefinition. Some white kid there, they're busy buying properties. They're busy posting about taking a flight to Durban, posting it on TikTok. It's just a mode of transport.
Eish.
I've never seen a rich person posting about taking a flight to. It's only people that want to look the picture.
You look in the picture, you're not the picture.
And the reason why we're failing, that's the thing. We're not working on becoming the picture. We're working so hard. That's why we have TikTok and Instagram.
Eish.
It's just to influence you to look the picture. Hence, we have people that will see a car and then park next to a beautiful car.
Take a picture of the car, but it's not your
and
car.
then they post it.
Eish.
I don't want to be that, man.
Eish.
I want to be the person who's sitting at the car somewhere, owning that car that you're posting the picture next to. And that will take discipline.
Oh, man.
And the best discipline, be a reader. And you don't have, like you say, I don't feel like reading. You don't need to feel like a reader.
Yeah.
You need to put yourself into that discipline.
That's so true. I remember another there's the one they always call the GOAT, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
He was having an interview and they were asking,
No,
he was
he's not
speaking
the
on.
GOAT.
You see now, you're a Messi fan. Look, we'll have this chat another time. You know what? I'm not gonna bring this up.
Before we go to the next point, let me explain. Andy Lentube is a sport analyst, right?
Yeah.
He said it in a very nice way. He's a Cristiano Ronaldo fan.
Yeah.
He says, I have every shirt that man has won.
Yeah.
Understand that? But he says we need to change the conversation from saying that Cristiano is the best player in the world to say Cristiano is my best player.
My best. Mm-hmm.
Because if we're talking about the best player in the world, Messi is one more.
Look, again, I'm not gonna open this debate, né? But I'll say this. He was talking about this and he was like, oh, I know some people want to do this, want to do great things. Oh, I want to be a great footballer. It's like, and he's like, it might shock you, but I don't always feel like going to the gym. There are days where working out. You see how I work out in my dedication and my work ethic. Yes, it's great, but I don't always feel like doing it when I'm doing it. I don't feel like going to the training when I'm going to training. I don't feel like when I'm on break, it's international break or whatever, or the season's over, and I'm still working out at the gym. There are days I don't feel like doing that. But I need to do it because I'm understanding what I'm working towards. So what you're saying, right there, it's like, even him is like, there are days I don't want to do this. There are days I don't want to eat the diet I'm eating. But because I know where I'm going, I need to do this if I'm going to achieve this level of greatness. If I'm going to be successful, these are the things I need to do. And it means that I might not want to do some of these things. Maybe sometimes I feel like doing it, more energized to do it, but sometimes I really would rather do something else.
Do you know what keeps it going? I spoke about purpose. That was my first point.
Yeah.
The second point was reading books.
Yeah.
Takes me to my third point. What keeps him going is the picture of where he's going.
Yeah.
Do you know what we call that? We call it vision.
Yeah.
Every man needs to have a vision. And the definition of the vision is simple. Is the picture of a desired end seen at the beginning. And that's what keeps people going. That's what gets people out of bed. The people that are not making it in life are people that don't know where they're going.
Sure.
The people that have not seen the picture of where they're going. And it is a cry in this generation that if young men are going to make it, if they're going to be successful, they need to be people of vision.
Come on.
So you need to have a vision. And Habakkuk 2 verse 2 says, write the vision down.
Make it clear.
Make it clear so that whosoever runs with it. You know, so from being a reader, you need to have a vision. And you need to write it down. One of the greatest things that happened to me in my season of toil, I call it my definition season, where I just have landed in a new city. I don't know anybody. I don't even know what was my next move. And I remember the first job that I got here was to work for a construction company, like you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
It's not a good job, But because I understood my responsibilities as a man is responsible.
Yeah.
The word responsibility is a two-in-one word. It simply means respond with an ability.
Ooh.
If you are a man, your response is without an ability, you a useless man.
Ish.
And I didn't want to be a useless man.
Yeah.
So I would do whatsoever it takes because I had responsibilities.
Yeah.
So my responsibilities say I need to respond with an ability.
Yeah.
When you have a family, they're expecting something, not stories.
Ish. Not excuses.
You can't come up with excuses as a man.
Yeah.
You need to respond with an ability. Because of that, I was forced to forget off my certificate. I took my certificate, put them under the bed. I took the job. But in that job, I never lost myself. I never forgot where I was going. The logo for my company, I did it with my first pay. When I got paid for the first time, I did the logo for my company.
Come on.
I did a logo for my company whilst working for a construction company.
Yeah.
Why? Because I had a vision. So when you have a vision, regardless of where the phases that you pass in life, what keeps you going, what keeps you motivated, is the vision.
Yeah.
Where you want to be. So I sat down. I always live my life in phases. In that phase, I remember when you look at my post in those years, I would always say next 5. I had a goal for 5 years.
Yeah.
I sat down with myself. I said, what is it that I want to become in the next 5 years? I said I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to run a consultancy company. I wanted to use Apple products. You can tell, I use Apple products.
Come on.
I wanted to drive a Benz.
Yeah.
No, bro, I sit down, I said, and then I said, okay, what is it that is going to take me? Like you said, if you can't sacrifice for it, then it won't mean anything to you. Anything that is of great value, it has a price.
Great sacrifice.
It has a price. If it doesn't have a price, it's not of great value. If it is of great value, it has a price. The Bible says a wise man will sit down and count the cost.
Yeah.
Why are you counting the cost? Because everything that is of great value has a price. So I sat down and then I said, okay, what is it? What's going to cost me to get into this level?
Yeah.
That decided how I live my life. It decides the habits.
Yeah.
It decides the framework. It decides the kind of mindset that you need to develop.
Yeah.
It decides the friends. It decides the environment and the spaces that you need to be in.
Sure.
You can't be in every space. When you define your vision, your vision defines the vehicle that you use to get there.
Not every room is your room. Not every room is your room. Like you reminded me, probably you say, like not every room is your room. And I remember, like again, it was a message I was hearing from the late Dr. Miles Monroe, and he was saying that a person with a vision is a very narrow person.
I'm telling you, man, it changes the scope of your thinking.
Yeah.
It changes your perception towards life. Hence the Bible says we don't walk by sight,
But by faith.
but we walk by faith.
Yeah.
There is a world that has not been seen before that you need to see. Like I said earlier on, the Bible says God came to Abraham. God is always about national transformation. It was always about people.
It's not just about one individual, eh?
It's always about people.
Yeah.
It's always about people. It's always about the change that you can bring about.
Yeah.
When God came to Abraham and said, where you can see, you shall possess. If you look by his physical eyes, you will just see Braamfontein. And he was going to be a village champion. But God has not called us for a village impact. God has called us for global impact. And we can only reach that level when we close our sight and open to spiritual eyes, which is the vision. What you are born to be.
This is why books are important.
I'm telling you, there was an interview of this lady.
Yeah.
I forgot her name. So this lady was a lecturer in the School of the Blind.
Yeah.
So the journalist, knowing, that it's hard to be blind. I think when she went to her with that interview, she thought this lady, because she had been having first-hand experience of blind people, obviously she was going to tell her about how difficult to navigate life as a blind person.
Yeah.
And she was asked the question, what's the worst thing that can happen to a human being? the answer will surprise you. She said, having sight without vision. I think the journalist was saying, being blind. And the lecture of people that are blind said, no, it's not blindness.
Oh.
Having sight without vision, that's the worst thing that can happen to a human being.
Yeah.
How many men that have sight but they don't have vision?
Ish.
And I always use this statement. Someone said, common is an eye that looks, rare is an eye that sees. Common is an eye that looks, rare is an eye that sees. And I always give this analogy and an example of Dubai. How many people saw Dubai as desert?
Almost everyone.
But there's one man who saw that place as a result of what it is today. They all looked at it. Some saw a desert, but he saw a great result. So one of the greatest attributes a man should have is the attribute of carrying a vision. The picture will keep you intact.
Yeah.
The picture will decide where you go. There are things that my body wants by all means. But the picture that I have doesn't allow me.
Yeah, you can't go down that road.
It doesn't allow me.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow me. It doesn't allow me. And it will keep you, the vision will keep you alive.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that I went to school with. When you look at them and you look at me, we're too different. I'm still young. Do you know what? The vision is keeping me alive.
Yeah.
Someone said some people died at 19 or 20 years old, only waiting to be buried at 8 years.
You're already dead.
You're already dead. You are a walking zombie.
Yeah.
Your life is lifeless.
Because there's no vision, no direction, no
You
sense
don't
of
have
purpose.
life. If you don't have vision, you don't have life.
And
Vision is the heartbeat.
And isn't that the reality, Ekas?
I'm telling you, because the man at Ekasi is not introduced to a vision.
Ish.
To say you also can become great.
And even sometimes the thing is also the ceiling is very low. For them, making it in life is I'm driving a GTI, but in Sahlelekaya, I'm still at home.
I'm telling you, hence I say we need to come to redefining what is success to a black young man.
So now how do we then change the mindsets? Like, I guess someone's probably listening and they're saying, okay, sharp, okay, I must have this vision, I must have this. But how do I get there? Mina, I'm still stuck at, hey, Ntwana, I need to get a cherry. Hey, Ntwana, I need to have that polo. I need to wear that label of clothing. I need to, be the one who pays for bottles at a club. We're always going out with the boys. I must look at. They're still there. They are not at let me leave Ekas. They're not at let me live in this suburb. They're not at that place. They're not at let me read books. But maybe there's the desire, So maybe there's the gents who has the desire of I want greatness, but their mindsets are still stuck. They're still struggling with the notion of this poverty Ekai.
Yeah.
They're still struggling with the idea of how can I even get out? There isn't anyone to even look to who has done it before me.
Yeah.
I must start it. Where's the way? I don't even know the path to it. So how do we actually start in changing the mindset?
So this is where it starts. Let me start by saying everyone is a candidate of greatness. It's not for the few elect.
Yeah.
One of the guys said to me, no one is born a winner, no one is born a loser. Then I asked him a question, what are we born in? He says, we are born a chooser. You choose to win, you choose to lose.
Sure.
So if you are in Ekasi, if you are in limited places, guess what? People that are born in rich places, it doesn't mean that they're going to reach the climax, or they'll succeed in life. What decides is the decisions. Which takes me to my second powerful statement. Write this down. Decisions decide destiny. So the decisions that you make, you are a sum total of your decisions.
Ish.
Whatever decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And I also say this. If you come to think about this, that the clock, right? It's 24 hours.
Yeah.
It It's not 28 hours for Elon Musk. It's 4 hours.
Everyone, it's 24 hours.
A rich man's 24 hour is as the same as a poor man's 24 hour. What makes them different in the same 24 hour is the way they think. Mindset. Mindset. What can you do? Work hard to expose yourself. I'll give you practical examples. Understand that in life, I see Zanga lapha emhlabeni ngokufana.
Yeah.
And there are people that when they start life, they start at plus. Some of us started negative.
Hey.
You know. And I always speak about this to say special orphans. Orphans will come with these things. I was not able to do this because my parents died when I was young. I didn't manage to go to school, whatsoever. It's up to you. Because your glory is in your story.
Hey.
What you do with your story determines who you become.
Yeah.
I can be the guy after some years come with a story to say, I didn't manage to do these things because I had this happening in my life, this happened and this didn't happen.
Yeah.
Or I can be the guy that says, regardless of this happening in my life, I turned out. From the tears, this is what came out. Or I can be the guy that can be the victim of my circumstances.
Yeah.
Or I can be the guy that can step in above my circumstances and become what I want to become.
Yeah.
So no one is limited.
Yeah.
No one is limited to being great. You're born great. There are people that I know that come from Vegas that just had an idea. You know. So one of the things that you can do for yourself is to find mentorship. For me, that's the greatest thing that I've done for myself. One author says, if it happens that we have seen beyond our peers, it is because we are standing in the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
So, some of the things that you need in life, for you to see yonder, acknowledge that you come from limitation, you come from limited base.
Yeah.
How do I step up? I need to stand in the shoulders of the giant. What do I need to do? Seek mentorship. Look for a mentor, approach someone that is doing what you want to become and say, yo bro, this is what I'm doing, introduce yourself. One of the greatest contacts that I have in my phone is Vusi Tembewan.
Yeah.
Yo man, I aspire to be that guy.
Yeah.
Man, I aspire to be that guy. And so we used to stay in the same complex. So some many years ago, I approached him, I'm like, hey dude, my name is this, I'm doing this bro. He liked my attitude. He gave me his number. You know, some many years later, I lost the number, and someone gave me the number again.
Yeah.
I helped him recently, and I reminded him, yo man, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
He saved my number again. So I have an opportunity to see his status every day.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do, I always look at what people that I look up to. What are the habits?
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah.
How do they live their life? And also stepping out of limitations, man. Remember, growing up from Makers, we're not exposed.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of what we used to do with our friends, and if the guys are watching, they'll actually attest to this. In Makers, man, you don't have an opportunity to go to a restaurant.
Sure.
Probably you don't have enough funds, or you don't have the money, or whatever the case is. So one of the things that I used to do was to step out of limitations.
Yeah.
I would just go to a fancy restaurant just to order a Coke or water. For me to familiarize myself with such environments.
Yo.
Like environments are critical for where you're going, man.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself to acres. You can be bigger than where you come from. Environment, familiarize yourself. Don't limit yourself to stages.
Yeah.
Tell yourself that I too can be there.
Yeah.
People that made it in life are people who say I too can do it. I always say that there's Barack Obama, right? That's great. There's Martin Luther King. That's great.
Yeah.
But there's also Dr Mthandazo Sibanda. I too.
Yeah.
I too, man. I too. Why not?
Yeah.
The rich man's 24 hours is the same as the poor man's 24 hours.
Come on.
Those guys don't have a lot of time. They just have time, the same time that we use. So that's the one thing that I do. I remember last time I shared this scenario that when I was doing my internship, so my first degree was my first qualification, my first job was in engineering.
Yeah.
So I used to wear a work suit. So there were two restaurants. One was called Ashley's. Ashley's was selling the African cuisine.
Yeah.
And African men will always go there.
Ah, of course.
And the next one there was Digenas. That was the French place name. So what happened there, we look at these two restaurants, we always went to Ashley's because we thought that's where we fit in.
Yeah, your budget fits that.
One day I just changed my mind and said, there's no harm in getting in here and ask what are the prices.
Hey, sometimes we scared to even ask the price.
Let me take you to the Bible. We disqualify ourselves.
Ish.
Remember the spies.
Yeah.
When you read
10
that
spies.
chapter, it's not the opposition that says they are grasshoppers. The Bible says, in our sight,
Their own perception.
their own perception, they disqualified themselves. And this is where we are as African children. We are disqualifying ourselves from greatness.
Ish. Yeah. Eh?
If there's anything that you can take away from this podcast, is that you are qualified. God qualified you.
Yeah.
The Bible says before the foundations of the earth, before you were born,
Amen.
God had a purpose, God had a reason for you to be here. Then who are you to disqualify yourself? So when we go to that restaurant, we will always look at Digenas. This was a fancy restaurant with a fancy name. But when we discover that we are not disqualified, we might as well go ask. We went inside only to discover that actually their prices were cheaper than these guys. These guys are cheaper than these guys. Why? Because we disqualified ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is where we are. We're disqualifying ourselves from greatness. But guess what? You are born to be great.
Sure.
You just need to have a dream.
Ish.
Martin Luther King stood up and said, I have a dream. Barack Obama stood up and sold hope. Says there's hope in America. There's hope for America.
Yeah.
What you tell yourself, you become.
Sure, reminding me of what in this message I watched of Dr. Miles Monroe was like, great leadership is leadership that actually inspires. Like when you inspire people, then you become a leader, because when you inspire someone, they follow you. So you don't seek leadership, you inspire people, and then people make you a leader because they're inspired by you. And he said, and the one that stuck with me was that if you're not inspiring, where there's no inspiration, you become a cancer. You become you become an infection. Where there's no inspiration, there's infection, because you control people and you manipulate people instead of inspiring people.
True. So John C. Maxwell, if that guy will mess you up, his definition of leadership, he says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. If there's no one who's following you when you're leading, you're just taking a walk in the park. You know, who are you influencing?
Yeah.
Who is following you?
Yeah.
You know, and guess what? Whether you know it or you don't, there's someone who's looking at you, who's following your footsteps.
Yeah.
Hence, you need to lead by example.
Yeah.
People don't need to tell you that, can you be my mentor? I remember this analogy my pastor showed me this many years ago. He said to me, do you know that there are people that you mentor knowing, and there are people that you mentor unknowing?
Can I say quickly? I actually prefer those, and I remember I'd even tell some friends, I'm like, it can be daunting if someone comes to me like, hey, can you be my mentor? I know for myself, someone comes, can you be my mentor? I'm gonna look at myself, I'm like, what can I teach you? What? You know, so sometimes it can be intimidating when you go up to someone that you admire and you say, can I be a mentor? What I've seen very helpful in my life was, I'll approach people and literally try to just build genuine relationships with those people, genuine friendships with those people. So now I've looked in my, and then now I take a step back and I look at some of the people in my life, some of my community. I am surrounded by such great men and women that I genuinely call my friends. And what tends to happen is that when there's a authentic friendship, is as a byproduct of the friendship is mentorship. A byproduct of that is leadership, is discipleship. So now these people, I have these great people in my life who have played father figure roles in my lives, who have may open my eyes to greater wisdom in terms of maybe scripture, the faith, who have introduced me to certain books and certain things to do, and even steered me in certain directions. But at the core of it, it was birthed from just a genuine friendship. So sometimes some people I have a close friend of mine also was like, no, I struggle, man. How do you get people to be like great mentors or father figures in your life? And I'm like, I just was like, can we go for coffee? And I just sat down with a coffee and I just had chats. And I got to know them as a person. And I got to understand them before the title. Because many times, and I think particularly black people, we struggle with this because we approach the title. Have you seen how in the workplace, the black person will be so intimidated by the CEO or the boss? Like, man, like you by the floor, you're working, and you just hear, hey, the boss is coming. Like, people start being frantic, they start doing like more work than they're currently doing. And it's because, and it's like, why?
What's wrong?
And my mom would always tell me the story when she was working, like, they'll just start at the follow. She used to work at Toyota, the manufacturing company in East Pingo, in Durban.
Yeah.
And they're on the floor, the production floor, they're working. And it's like one of the directors or, one of the seniors are walking by the production floor. People stop being so frantic and she's just like, oh, guys, just because it's a white person, this person is a man just like you and I.
Yeah.
And this person comes in, my mom will just greet them nicely. The mindset,
It's the mindset. And you're taking me to this point where I started on exposure. So I started going to this restaurant just to expose myself.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want, when I'm invited into those restaurants, I'm intimidated.
Yeah.
Because I've never been into those environments.
Yeah.
Take me to reminding me of a story when I was doing my internship. So a client was happy with our service.
Yeah.
He decided to take us to this fancy restaurant. So when we were there, one of my friends, instead of eating, he starts to say, looking around, so embarrassing, man, so embarrassing. So for me, I just had that enthusiasm. I wanted to be great. And one of the things I need to expose myself. Networking.
Yeah.
Networking, just getting used to be around people that are doing great.
Yeah.
To the extent that you're not intimidated by anyone.
Yeah.
Because automatically when you're coming from a class, you just have this intimidation that I have never been into these spaces.
I don't belong
I'm not wealthy. So building self-worth. And that's where men are lacking. I feel like other men have not discovered who they are.
Ish.
And who you are is not the outward appearance.
It's inner.
Dark, handsome, tall, or whatever. Some of these things that people define.
That's not who you are.
This body that you see here is a vehicle that you use while you are here on earth.
Ish.
Then it means this is not me. Who's me? The person that I am on the inside. And I feel like a lot of men are failing because they're not connected with the person that they are.
The inner self.
So when I share on relationships and marriage, one of the things that I usually share on this to say, Adam, when God saw him in the Garden of Eden and decided to give him a helper, it was not because he was lonely. There is a difference between being lonely and being alone.
Hey, yeah.
He was alone, not lonely.
Not lonely.
And why do I say so? Anytime you are connected to purpose, you can't be lonely. You can't be lonely when you are connected to your purpose.
Yeah.
So men have not connected to their purpose.
Yeah.
Hence there is that vacuum. That's why people are killing themselves, depression, anxiety. They've not connected. There's that vacuum, there's a space. And I always say this, because of that, we have lost special celebs.
Ish.
Why? Because they've defined themselves by a skill or a talent.
Ish.
There is a difference between the skill that you carry or a talent that you carry and the man. The people have not taken time to develop the man that is carrying the gift. It's not the gift that is failing people. Beyonce was she's one of the gifted person that you know. Michael Jackson was one of the gifted. What's his name? Whistling. All those people were gifted. What failed them is the man. not the gift.
Yes.
The man is not capacitated to carry the gift. They work hard to develop the gift, not the man carrying the gift.
Oh.
You see, so men should capacitate themselves. Build a man, not the gift, not the outward man.
Yeah.
It's good also to do those things.
But man did the man.
The person who's inside. That's the person who you are on the inside. That's who you are.
Would you say this whole concept you're talking about of the mindset, would you say it's more important for men? Like it's definitely important for females as well, but I'm just saying, is it more important for men? Because you look at the Bible and you see that there's this mantle of leadership, there's this mantle of being the head, particularly for your household as a male. And we were talking on vision.
Yeah.
And having the purpose and having that mental picture of where you're going. So would this idea of actually, really working on your mindset, working on the state of your mind, working on the vision that you have, is it particularly as more important as well to the male?
Yeah. Remember, a male figure is the head. And you discover that if we don't develop our mindset, hence that's why one of the attacks the enemy is doing is towards the man.
Yeah.
Why? Because if you kill the head, you kill the everything.
Ish.
You see? So if we don't have men that are stead, men that know who they are, we have killed that society.
Ish.
Hence, that's why I want to talk about this, but they're trying to kill men. They're trying by all means. The narrative that they're pushing is to make men irrelevant, useless.
Ish.
They know if you're going to go to any city, if you want to conquer the city, conquer the man.
Yeah.
So it's so important for a man to develop himself.
Yeah.
It's so important for a man, number one, to know his position. The first thing that the enemy wants to do is to take you out of position. Hence, when God comes in the Garden of Eden, he asked Adam, where are you? He says, I'm not worthy.
Because he's been taken out of position.
We're not asking, what are you doing? We're asking, where are you?
And also the thing is, people don't realize that when God is asking that question, it's not because they can't find him. No, he knows exactly where, but he's like, where are you? Because he can see he's been displaced.
Displacement from what? It wasn't a physical.
It wasn't a physical, it was a relational displacement. So it was
the ritual aspect.
Yeah.
So if men get back to having a relationship with God, if men get back to finding that having a relationship with themselves, how do we do this? We need to create, you spoke about communities. For me, communities are so important.
Yeah.
The communities is the place of defining things.
Yeah.
It's a support space.
Yeah.
A place of finding yourself. Because a lot of us have lost ourselves. We need gathering as men, where we sit as men and talk as men.
Yeah.
Because we are in a spaces where sometimes you can't voice as a man. You can't be weak as a man.
Ish.
Right now, if you are a man, you are facing abuse, you can't go and report it. You go to a police station, you report that, then you're going to be a laughing stock.
Literally.
And we need to go back to our ethics. Back in the days, there used to be community where men would sit as men and discuss serious matters.
Yeah.
So my wife was asking me this other day. She always liked this place, and she said to me, "Can you please go deeper on this place? What does it mean that the husband is respected as he sits at the city gates?" And I took her to this concept. I said, back in the days, men would sit at the city gates to discuss the matters of the community. But a man that was treated well was respected by their wife, by his wife, was respected in those gatherings.
Yeah.
Why? There's this scenario I always put. There are these women sometimes when a man is speaking, awuthule wekhabazela akukhulume Zulu.
Eish.
That woman has taken authority from that man.
Eish.
That man is a useless man in that gathering.
Eish.
He's a useless man in that gathering.
Yeah.
But we need to come back to having those gathering men where we build each other up. We are praying for each other up. We are giving people wise, godly advice. You know, because there's advice, there's godly advice. And everything that we do, it has to be scripture, it has to have scripture. If it's not in the scripture, we don't want it.
Yeah.
So if men go back to those settings where we're giving ourselves, we're leading from that position, where we recruit, we come together as men, we sit down, we talk about issues that we're dealing with. We give people each other advices. And one of the greatest things that you can do, be in healthy communities, man. There are communities, men need to come back.
Yeah.
You can't be a loner.
Eish.
You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And I always say this, back in the days, we had superheroes. You remember we had Spider-Man?
Yeah.
We had Superman.
Superman.
We had
Batman.
They no longer function in our time. You can't win as a superhero, but you can win when you are in a team. Hence, we have adventures. We win as a group.
Yeah.
We win as a team. So if you have those communities, it's good to regroup, sit with other men and hear what they're talking about. It's going to help you to grow.
Yeah.
Help you to grow. I remember Paul. Paul was different from all these apostles. His journey was not him walking with Jesus. His journey was meeting Jesus along the way. You know what happened? You constantly go back to Jerusalem to find out if he's still on track. It's easy to go out alone and think that you're doing great things. That's why men fail.
Yeah.
You need to come back and regroup. Find a community. Find your own tribe. That's going to help you to become a right man.
My guy, there's some powerful things we've been spoken here, and I just want to thank you so much for chatting with me. I think some of the most powerful things, and I hope people really understood that sometimes even books, they take you to a place that you've never been in. The way it's so important to read and how it can create a vision for you and it can create a path for you. And I think sometimes that people just need to get over the hype of acceptance and feeling like you're one with the boys, you're part of whatever, because like I was saying earlier, when there's a vision, when you get to understand your purpose, you live a very narrow life. You are a very narrow person. You know exactly what you need to do, and you quickly know the things that you shouldn't do and the spaces you shouldn't be in, because they're not going to take you to where you actually need to go. And I feel like what sometimes is holding people back is the need to still feel like you belong, to still be relevant with society. Because now, for example, I'll just make a small example. On your journey, you're going towards this. I'm not going to go to the clubs anymore. Now, because you're not going to the club anymore, you feel like, but if I'm not at a club, I'm not together with the gents. Or you know that you're reading books. You don't have time to be watching the game. Now when you're the gents, you can't explain, you can't be chatting with the gents about the Premier League. You don't know what's happening. You don't know who's on top. You don't know the table yet. You don't know who's in form, who's not in form. But if you know that, hey, what my purpose is and the vision that I have for my life, it's going to require this of me. You kind of get over that need to feel like you're fitting in, to feel like everyone's with you, And so I hope people really got some really golden things anyway. So before we wrap up, any parting words?
So my parting words will be this. As much as we look the same, as much as we can go to same churches, we come from different backgrounds or whatever, our paths are not the same. My path is different from yours. Yours is different from mine. Your life is tailor-made on what God designed you to be.
Come on.
Never live life by default. You live life by design. What am I saying by saying that? You don't live life by what life gives you. You design what you want life to give you. So God has called you to be great. God has called you to be amazing. And there's enough space for all of us to shine And the Bible says, be the light,
Yeah.
shine, set upon the hill or under the table, not somewhere in the bedroom. Because some people, I believe some people have great lights, but their lights are hidden. God has called you to shine. So let's be out here, let's shine. We are born for such a time as this.
Come on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate it.